please remember to leave a like, a comment, share the video about, and if you haven't already, subscribe. Thank you. Well, isn't this just fantastic? A couple days ago I noticed that Stardew Valley was getting a bit of attention on Twitter. The reason why is because of one user. That one user is who we're going to be looking at today. That aforementioned user has been getting dragged a little bit for some bad takes. Of course, we should probably start by talking about what Stardew Valley is. Stardew Valley is a 2016 farm sim life game. I've often regarded it as the game that many play when they are too cowardly to kill the prostitutes in Grand Theft Auto instead. Now that I've got your attention, I hope you stick around for the rest of the video. I have never personally played Stardew Valley. I know many who do. I've even been sent a copy of the game and ignored it, or forgot. It could be both. It's not my type of game, even though I play sim video games like trucking simulators. Sims games, not so much. This falls within the bracket of Sims. Now, owing to how fast things transpired, went down, and scorched earth occurred, I reached out to Chris the Nazi narc who had tweeted about this. That's how I initially heard of it. Simply saying, because I'm a content thief, I'm going to bully you to maintain my low-end reviews. Queerly B, who are they? To which, thankfully, Chris has given me information and recommendations for who to go to. But that's alright, we've got some clips, we'll work with it. We're also going to look at some tweets as well, because it's quite important for the sake of context. Queerly B is the individual who has been getting a little bit on the dragged side. According to their Twitter, now protected, they are an autistic, disabled, trans, soft-spoken, silly internet lad. Congratulations. This individual has some perspectives when it comes to Stardew Valley. This is where we're going. Along with their behaviours that are quite unbecoming, and their audience, who they are responsible for in this context, acting in a way that is inappropriate to those who have criticised Queerly B. Queerly B is active on YouTube, on TikTok, and on Twitch. Sadly, at time of recording, the video that they put out that garnered all the attention is no longer available, but it is covered on the Ruined Leon YouTube channel and, I believe, Chud Logic. The root cause of the problem comes down to the belief from Queerly B that Stardew Valley is transphobic when it comes to pronouns and representation. Here's a statistic for you that might already set up the rest of this video. The game has been bought over 20 million times. 40,000 people downloaded one mod, which makes up 0.2% of the entire gamer base. I mention this because there has been a petition to change the nature of the game so that there are pronoun options for trans and non-binary players in Stardew Valley. It has a few signatures. It's done alright. Fantastic stuff. This petition was started by an individual called Atmos Fierce. Many of those that support the petition believe the game needs to give them the representation and inclusivity so that they themselves don't have their identity torn at in a video game where you have male or female characters. Because when you play a video game, you want to play as yourself, because IRL is so much harder for the cozy life gamer. In case you can't tell, there's a fair amount of sarcasm in this that could be easily mistaken for cynicism. It's not. It's just sarcasm, I promise. Now, because there was a lack of response from Concerned Ape, the creator of the game, people had started on social media to accuse Concerned Ape of essentially being transphobic because of the lack of non-binary options, which couldn't be further from the truth, let's face it. These games are constantly being updated. A priority for a very small number of a very small community is not going to get his attention. Now, my grievance already is that those that imply transphobia and latch on to this and act on it to try and label somebody with something negative because they don't get their own way come across as the type to push cancellation. Yet you're the one still playing the game. I get that this game means a lot to you, but just for the sake of it, I doubt it means nothing to the person who created it. And you are not the sole authority or arbiter of what should or should not go into a game that has appealed to tens of millions. This is now where Queerly B comes into it, and Queerly B made a video talking about this lack of response, which has in turn led to Queerly B's audience attempting to cancel Ruined Leon and Chud Logic because they both covered this subject, and they both chastised Queerly B for a poor take from Queerly B. I don't like this name. It's worse than mine. Owing to the fact they have removed the video from their channel, I have to take clips from Ruined Leon's video. I do apologise, I'll link his full video down below, because that's the right thing to do.
Some argue that given Concerned Ape's likely awareness of the request and his active choice to avoid the topic, we should consider the possibility of transphobia influencing his decision.
But why though? There are priorities when it comes to developing a game to appeal to the widest possible audience. You might see this as a non-issue, which in turn you're making into a bigger issue than it really is, the boogeyman, I guess, the crux of a problem. I guess for you it's a big problem, and many others falling within a community like yourself, because this is a part of your content on YouTube, TikTok, Twitch, and I'm sure you post it to your Instagram as well. Because of that investment, and because it is a part of your daily life and routine, you take great offense to not being represented. I feel like the recurring problem of the TED Talk from last week and the Custodies may well feature here as well.
Others caution against rushing to this conclusion, suggesting there may be alternative reasons for his silence.
Yes, patience should always be practiced, but apparently the internet is still full of reactionary morons who are far too quick to collar and to assume, which is the mother of all fucked up choices, because why bother to wait?
They advocate for a positive and non-confrontational approach to persuade him or exert pressure for the update, rather than resorting to greater levels of disruption. While I do agree that I do not want Concerned Ape to be harassed or bullied, I don't personally believe that merely asking the question whether or not transphobia might be a factor in his lack of communication equates to harassment or bullying.
You're right, it isn't. However, the question is loaded. It is intentionally done to lead him down a path of conversation so you can then start to press why you're not included, why you're not represented, which in turn means you're loading up the questions so that you can then say, but then surely by not including us in updates, you are transphobic. It's basic manipulation 101, and anyone with an IQ over 1 can see right through that. But there's another aspect to this that needs to be pointed out, and you're about to say it.
It's worth considering that Concerned Ape is a single developer, not a large company, but at the same time, his estimated net worth from Stardew Valley exceeds $45 million. I don't know about you, but personally, I find it challenging to empathize with millionaires, especially given that he could therefore afford to hire assistants with his game, but chooses not to.
The net worth of the individual is utterly irrelevant, as is the number of employees Concerned Ape has, or doesn't have. You are trying to now make it clear that Concerned Ape has a mentality, a tunnel vision, very much focused on one thing, and that is not inclusivity. Again, the loaded and manipulating aspect of the original queries being demonstrated now because you believe by having more people working on the project on Stardew Valley, then inclusivity can in fact be pressed, processed, addressed, implemented. I'm starting to see why people criticized you.
I do think it's reasonable to pose the question as to whether or not transphobia is involved in his choice to be silent. As a community, trans individuals often face disappointment from those we once trusted, including friends, family, creators, and game developers who may harbor ignorant or hostile attitudes towards us without us knowing until something like this comes up.
I see we're doing the feelings over facts thing again. I didn't realize that was getting a renaissance as well. Part of me wants to be disappointed, but I'm not this time. I don't know why. I do find it strange to put friends, family, and game developers in the same ballpark, though. Something about that seems a tad parasocial.
Therefore, questioning the potential involvement of transphobia could be viewed as a valid form of self-preservation.
Self-preservation? Oh dear God, this is the level we're operating with. I know sometimes I can be accused of punching down, but some people really don't help themselves.
While there are other forms of queer representation in Stardew Valley, which some may argue as a reason to assume it's not transphobia, I don't believe this is a fair comparison. It is not uncommon for individuals to be accepting of the broader queer community while disregarding the needs of trans individuals themselves.
On the screen is some gameplay. This was recorded by one of my lovely mods. As you can tell, this is the kind of level we're operating with. I'm not looking down on the game or those who play the game, by the way, but you are making a mountain out of something that is not even a molehill. You are right to point out a false equivalence, but you're being very selective with what a false equivalence is. Certainly with earlier quotes, you were happy to use it when it suited you, and then shift the goalpost when applicable to your own motives. I really hope you have the same energy for games with higher resolution.
Moreover, I believe that advocating for a peaceful approach and solely relying on petitions overlooks the reality that trans players and their allies have been using this strategy for an extended period of time without any response.
I'm not surprised you've not had much in the way of a response, because if you're going to go with a change.org petition, you're going to need a bit more than 8,000 signatures. They don't generally get much in the way of traction unless you really have a larger swath of the community on your side. Using loaded and rather poisonous language to drive home your point seems a bit counterproductive. That is often the case with the current generation, to be as reactive as possible and volatile at the same time, because why bother to gauge response and gradually increase, when instead of being kind and polite and peaceful, you gotta be a dickhead to drive the point home. You'd be a crap poker player, and I can't believe you scripted this. Since you're not looking at the camera, I know you're reading from one. This isn't very well thought out.
Concerned Ape, being a person of significant power, privilege, and wealth, has been granted ample opportunity to address community concerns peacefully but has opted not to do so. This leaves players with limited options: either disengage from the game and withdraw support due to his communication failures, or adopt more assertive measures in protesting his actions.
If the transphobia or allegation of transphobia is as substantial as you believe it to be, you still playing the game, which you still do, would be an indicator you don't take this anywhere near as seriously as you should. Boycotting would be one of the most preferred ways forward. Finding an alternative game, perhaps. Animal Crossing is quite inclusive and still moderately popular on the Switch. But then this is where the crosshairs come in, the conflict of interest. Because you get views from Stardew Valley, you would have to create a new audience and get them to go with you on the platforms that you use. So really, you want the change from Concerned Ape. You want them to kowtow, to give you what you want, so that you don't have to go looking for another game to play, because you've invested far too much of your time and life into this one.
Considering the substantial number of trans players who deeply appreciate and support Stardew Valley, it seems reasonable to explore more disruptive methods to capture his attention and prompt him to speak up, rather than abandoning a beloved franchise.
I don't recommend doing anything inherently negative. While it can lead to positive outcomes, it just shows how willing you are to bully somebody else into submission, which in turn makes you look like a crappy individual and a crappy gamer. I'm sure someone in the comments is now going to say, "But that's why you play Stardew, because you're a crap gamer." And of course, I am going to allow you to say that, but not support, endorse, condone, or criticize. People are allowed to play whatever they want, really. And my view is the games I play, especially on handhelds, I do to get away from IRL. I don't play games for the community side of things. So to me, it's all kind of redundant. But you're not done talking yet, and I've got more content to go through.
I think it's unfair that trans individuals should feel compelled to exit communities that fail to accommodate them, especially given the scarcity of inclusive spaces where we can freely exist without confrontation or exclusion.
Now that's fascinating, because you're not providing any citations or proof to your point. That's not to say you're not telling the truth, you are asserting it though. If you're going to make a video like this, you should provide the source material to back your claim. Otherwise, it's an appeal to authority, it's a fallacy.
It's not uncommon for us to have to fight for our place in spaces. This situation brings to mind broader discussions around protests, where people often feel uneasy about disruptive or even violent protests.
I think you'll find the best way to be disruptive in this context in a game like Stardew Valley would be to stop playing it entirely, regardless of your desperate need to play it for clicks, for attention, for views, and the usual stuff for your social media credibility and presence to increase, right? Although this video will have undoubtedly shone a light on you for a bit. Shame you deleted, but you were right to. Who said that?
Obviously, in this case, we're not talking about violence, but I think it's important to remember that more disruptive protests often are the catalysts for meaningful change.
You are talking about protesting. You are talking about options available to you, because representation in a game that is a direct rip on 16-bit games from like the Nintendo, or Super Nintendo to be more specific. It's a sodding video game, and this is what you're getting so uppity over. You want your voices to be heard and you want change to be implemented, but you're not willing to make the sacrifice to drive the point home. Because you know that driving the point home by boycotting the game will not yield an outcome in the positive for you, because there are too many players and most don't give a damn. The cozy game player, or the gamer that plays the cozy game, generally don't get involved in the community side of things, and there are communities for all games, all fandoms. Your interpretation of this is, we need to consider transphobia, the label, as the next option. You also partially weaponized your audience, many of whom have taken to social media to flag Ruined Leon and Chud Logic for covering this, criticizing you, under the guise of, but what you're doing is correct, because what you are standing up for are the rights of those who aren't in 16-bit format being represented, because you can achieve so much in 16-bit. You really can. I honestly believe you can make so much change with 16-bit and a possible poxy flag at best, unless you're going to ask for gender reassignment buildings, perhaps, to take your neurotic boyfriend, or the man you're cheating on them with, the girlfriend that's also got infidelity issues, or a thief. Yes, I've heard about the characteristics of all the characters and NPCs in Stardew. The mod that recorded this video game footage you're now seeing again very kindly walked me through it once, because I was curious. Not enough to play it though. No, I'll stick to Pokemon on the Game Boy.